Hey, what is up, guys? Lord Nick here, bringing you a patch 11.11 rundown. I wasn't gonna do these type of videos, but I wanted to kind of start showing that I can do analytical stuff. Um, so one of the first things I'm gonna do is a patch rundown, and then later today I'm also gonna be recording the my review of the Cloud9 versus Pentanet game, and look for that either later today or tomorrow. So, first up on the patch 11.11 for us right now is Azir. So Azir is getting a Q cost reduction. Riot's own words for it is that he was doing too well in pro play, so they nerfed him, but they want to try to start giving him some type of power back to a small degree. I don't honestly think this will do too terribly much. I mean, yes, you're losing 15 per cost, which means, let's say you on average are casting it 3 times in lane. That means you're getting 45 mana back, which almost gives you enough to play it back. So you have to cast it 4 times to be able to cast it an additional time that you wouldn't normally be able to cast it. This is a core mechanical piece of Azir's kit, but I don't honestly believe that reducing the mana cost should affect it too terribly much. Now, that being said, I am not an Azir player, so I don't know all the nuances of how good this is going to feel compared to what it felt before. You are going to be getting it back every 4 times that you cast it. You get an additional cast that you normally wouldn't have gotten, right? Like that's just how it works. At 15, and now it costs 55. So instead of it being 70, you're getting 15 back each time. So at 3, you're getting 40. That's 45 mana, which is almost enough for a new cast, and then an additional 15 mana back for the 4th time, which means you're getting a little bit extra mana that you wouldn't have had, plus an additional cast of it. So that's pretty good. That's not anything to like say is not going to work, but mages in general are in a spot where they need items to perform. So if you're looking at this in a factor of yes, early on you're going to be able to poke more, maybe the comet builds are going to be more powerful with him, but in general, I don't think this is really going to affect like this is going to make him broken in any way. I think it is going to help in ways that a lot of people probably aren't looking at. Like I said, that additional cast of it might make or break his laning phase. For all we know, that's a little bit of extra damage. I need to go in and look at the stats of this ability itself, and depending on whatever the base stats of this ability are, would kind of determine if this is a big enough impact to allow him to do stuff. I know this is his primary damage output right now, outside of the fact of standing there and attacking things. In the early game, your Q is the primary damage, which is why people go Comet, because it allows you to poke and take over the lane. So it's possible that you could see a little bit more power being enabled in the Comet builds, because now you're casting an additional time, which means Comet comes off a cooldown a little bit sooner. So maybe this is something that pushes Azir into a little bit of solo queue viability. I don't think it's going to it's going to make him like so broken that everybody can play him, but I think Azir mains are going to kind of enjoy this a little bit, and this is going to make their laning phase feel a little bit better for them. Next up, we have a change to Elise. The change to Elise is changing her passive. We're losing 10% AP scaling on our passive. This is not that meaningful a change. I don't understand. Like, Riot is saying we're reinforcing the idea that she's an early game jungler by saying you don't have scaling. But Elise's scaling really isn't the problem with Elise right now. Like, I get it, you're trying to say, hey, we don't want her to be viable in the late game to a degree, but the taking away late game viability when her late game is already considered pretty bad is just adding more and more reasons why people really shouldn't learn this champion, right? Like, she's already in a spot right now that, yes, while she's doing quite well on the top end of solo queue, she's not really statistically doing that great in the lower ends. She takes a lot of skill to play. She has a lot of management of her abilities. People might argue, oh, there's no skill to one-shotting people, but her one-shot really only comes through when when she can hit her long-range, slow-moving stun. And I say slow-moving because there's other stuns that are just faster as projectiles than hers. Like, I mean, I am pretty often able to dodge an Elise stun more often than like a couple of other ones. Morgana Binding has its giant width that makes it kind of hard to dodge. Elise's is kind of a narrow projectile. So, like, there's a bit of a skill there, and then knowing when to transform, what abilities to use, the combination of your abilities, can you actually all in? there's a lot of information you have to be successful at least, and just taking raw damage off of her, I think, is okay, but also just kind of bad. Like, yes, you're reinforcing the fact you want her to be an early jungler, so give her more early power so that she feels powerful. I get it, you don't want another Elise meta, but it's still, I don't think that she's really all that devastating in most elos right now. Only the top echelon really kind of uses her, and I get it, stuff like pro guys and stuff like that on their videos and stuff are trying to tell people, hey, you should probably pick Belize. She's pretty dang broken. I honestly haven't seen almost any Elises, and the few that I've played against, I've been able to just kind of destroy because she doesn't like it. They don't scale well. So in the meta, unless she can continuously and constantly do dives and ganks and constantly punish people in lane, she doesn't do anything. She's pretty lackadaisical, and if she tries to farm fight somebody, she's gonna lose. And this just reaffirms that because now she has no scaling into the late game. This doesn't really affect early game because hey, early on you don't have AP, so 20% AP opposed to 30% AP doesn't really do much when you have no AP to begin with. So this really only affects her mid to late game, which she was already kind of bad at. So this is just a nerf to something she was already bad at. I don't know. It's a weird change in general. Um, Next up, we have a base stat increase for Ezreal. This is not like a tremendous buff. Okay, so this gives Ezreal a little bit more lane sustain, right? Like you have two extra armor. Okay, two extra armor. What is that going to do for you? Not much. I mean, it reduces a few early hitters' auto attacks, maybe, but it doesn't like give him enough power to do anything. And then, oh, cool, your health regen growth is up, so you're gonna gradually start gaining more health back. It's nothing. This change is neutral of nothing really. This is almost as much of a joke of removing two armor and calling it a nerf. You're adding two armor and saying it's a buff. It's just as bad. It's so useless. If you're looking at the Graves change here, I think this one is a little bit under the radar to a small degree. AD growth is something that's a little bit funky. You might look at it and think, oh, you know what, he's only getting one AD, that's not that big a deal. No, 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 he's getting one AD at level 2, and then he's getting another AD at level 3, and then another one at 4, another one at 5, another one at 6. So by 6th level, he's already gained an additional 5 AD. 5 AD is a decent amount of stats to just be gaining just for free in comparison to what he had before. This small bit of growth is going to allow him to clear just a little bit faster, probably, and he's going to do just a little bit more damage. I think this is a solid push in the right direction. This is a good way of not allowing Graves to become super powerful, because if you give him too much of a buff at too many times, there's too many times in the past where it's like, hey, we're just going to give Graves, 20% attack speed, or we're going to give him a reduced cooldown on his dash, or we're going to give him a slight bump in his damage ratio on his Q. There's too many times of stuff like that in the past where it just allows him to just take over. And there's too many other changes in the meta, and then it's just like, hey, look, Graves just looks really good now. So this small thing is where people are going to see it, and most people are going to be like, this doesn't do much. And there's going to be a few people who play Graves that are going to notice just slight tweak in his damage. Maybe you won't notice it that much, but you're going to notice just a slight ability to probably clear just a tiny bit faster. By level 16, you've gained an additional 15 80, just base. That's not bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not anything to sneeze at and say, oh, this is useless. It's more useful than the 2 armor buff that Ezreal got, at least, right? It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's something that's going to push Graves in the right direction. I think he's kind of on the precipice of being okay right now. He's kind of bad, but he's not too far away from bad, so far away from good to be needing a giant buff. He just needs a little bit of a tweak so that he's in an okay spot, and not taking over the meta. So Hecarim is getting some more changes, right? Riot has really made it clear they don't like the tank Hecarim. They give a lot of nerfs to it, and they gave a couple buffs to the dead horse. I love how they put in here, we're not trying to beat a dead horse, but with our last round of nerfs, in 11.9, and jungle changes, we kind of did. They're saying that they punished Hecarim too much. I don't really think they did. I think they did okay with what they did to Hecarim. He's still not, terrible in the position that he was before these buffs. I think all these buffs are going to do is they're going to encourage a playstyle that is very unhealthy and in a lot of people's opinion, probably worse than the tank Hecarim. Tank Hecarim was very annoying to deal with. He's very difficult to outrun. He's difficult to kite. I mean, that's kind of just the nature of the beast, though, right? He's building all movement speed items. It's going to make him hard to deal with. And that's a hard to deal with tank. Any tanks that can keep up with you is really, really difficult. That's the whole point of being able to kite them, is that, you should be able to kite them. If they're all super, super fast, that's really hard to do. In the case of Hecarim, he really liked going super fast because it gave him more damage. So, I mean, the tank Hecarim was just so oppressive because everything about Hecarim wants to go fast. And then the fact that he could build tank on top of it was just obnoxious. Now he can't, but you're trying to say, hey, we don't want him to not be good, so we're trying to give him even more ratios with damage. So we're going to see a lot more Ghostblade, is what I'm predicting here. With these changes, we're going to see a lot of Ghostblade. And the reason why is his Q is going up from 70% of his bonus AD to 75% of his bonus AD. You know what gives a lot of bonus AD? It gives you movement speed, which gives you additional bonus AD, and allows you to run at people really, really fast. It's called Ghostblade. Ghostblade gives you that active that boosts your freaking movement speed, which gives you an additional bump to your freaking attack damage. You know how dumb that is now? When your bonus AD of 75% ratio on your Q now. Okay, you're just going to run at somebody, helicopter them, and, like, annihilate them because you have a lethality and a crap ton of AD. I'm just saying, with this type of ratio, in knowing Riot, it's going to be like, nobody's going to be running that build, and then Riot's going to be like, oh, well, this seems like he's not strong enough yet, and they're going to move it up to, like, 85%. And then all of a sudden, people are going to be running Ghostblade, and he's just going to be one-shotting everybody on the Rift. Devastating Charge. Minimum damage is going up to 55% bonus AD, and maximum going up to 110 bonus AD. I think this is an okay change. As much as I'm giving crap for the change above, this change is okay just due to the fact that they really, really gutted this ability's damage when they did the first rounds of big nerfs. And so, like, they're making this where he has okay ratios, and your first ability that you're maxing is Q, which is why I think the Q1 is a little bit weird, because, you're going to have good base damages on the Q. Like, they nerfed it a little bit before, but his Q has decent base damage, and now you're giving it decent scaling. His E was always about the fact that, you max it second, but, like, it's going to be kind of into the mid to late game that you've maxed this, and so it's not as impactful as, like, giving the Q as big a buff. Yeah, the base damage increase is nice, but it kind of needs it because it's going to be more or less based off of this and the distance traveled. And with the fact that you're not going to go as fast, this kind of needed it. But with the Ghostblade, you're going to still be going kind of fast. All in all these changes to make Hecarim be more about a damage-oriented guy opposed to a tank, I think that's a good direction to move it towards, but the problem I see with this is right now you're giving him really good ratios, which is meaning he's going to stay in the meta probably, and people are just going to be building him back into kind of like lethality, run you down Hecarim, so we're going to see Ghostblade into Deadman's, into maybe Triforce or something. And I'm not a big fan of seeing something like that because I've already had to deal with it in the past and it was not fun. We might even end up seeing something goofy like Hecarim with Ghostblade into Duskblade. You know how freaking weird that's going to be when he comes in, one shot to your ADC, turns invisible, and then runs away at the speed of sound while he's invisible, so you can't ever react to it? That's going to be disgustingly powerful if people decide that that's how you're going to build him. He might turn into an assassin now. We don't know. He has good enough ratios now that he could potentially be an assassin. You spam your Q so much that having 75% bonus AD added to the damage of it can be quite devastating when you're moving really, really fast and able to just swing that Q twice in a fight. But we'll see. I'm predicting that Hecarim lethality will be back. At least Ghostblade Hecarim will be back. If the full lethality build comes back, who knows? But I'm pretty positive at least Ghostblade will be back in his kit. Next up we have Lee Sin. So Lee Sin's E Tempest is going back up to 9 seconds, opposed to being the 10 seconds that it was. He overall has now gained a 1 second reduction on his E. I get the reason Riot's doing this. I don't know if the cooldown is as much as the reason that this is as broken as it is. They did buff how it works with his numbers a while back as well, outside of just the fact that they buffed how low a cooldown it is. So they're trying to kill the viability of top and mid Lee Sin, or at least make it less viable by increasing the time back up this. It doesn't really affect Lee Sin jungle because you're not maxing E in the jungle, you're still maxing Q, which Lee Sin jungle, by the way, is actually still pretty decent right now because the meta has shifted to early ganking junglers, and guess what? Lee Sin's really good at early ganking. So I mean, you could still see Lee Sin jungle, but I think this will kind of deter some people, or at least the less skilled Lee Sin players, from trying him in the laning phase, which means we will probably see less flex picks. This is kind of more towards high end play, so I don't think you really have to worry about this one as much. Hey, Leona's finally getting a damage reduction to her W. This is something people have been praying for a while. Now, note the base damage, like that level 1 and level 2 damage decrease, is good enough that people are going to feel that. Um, but as it goes on, you don't really care for her in terms of how much damage she's doing. So it's really only on those first two levels that you really care where that damage is coming in. I mean, this is one of the abilities you're maxing early on most of the time because it's the damage reduction as well that this gives you. And they're not getting rid of the tankiness of it, which I like. That remains allowing her to be a tank. But you're just trying to say that she doesn't do as much damage, which is good. I just don't know if this is enough, really, because like everything that Leona does is oriented about allowing her ADC or whoever she's pairing up with to do more damage. So she's still going to be in basically giving them kind of like an enchanter buff to a small amount still. Be stupid tanky, have her stupid amounts of CC, and this tiny amount of damage you're taking off of her, I think, does change how her early laning phase will go. But once she hits level 6, I think she's going to become oppressive just as much. So I don't really see her falling out of the meta with this. I think it's a good directional change, but I don't think this is just going to gut her out of the meta. Like it is a 15 damage drop. So let's say you hit them 3 times in the first bit of trading between level 3 and 4. Let's say you've traded 3 times in level 3 and 4. You've lost 45 damage. That could be enough for somebody to live. Um, so all this is really going to do is make you a little bit more reliant on your ADC, which loses some of her solo queue viability to a degree. But I'm not even running into that many Leonas that are not duoed up. So like if you run into a Leona in solo queue, most of the time they're duoed with the person you're against. So like if they're duoed with them, then this is only there to kind of punish people that are not paying attention to what Leona's doing. So if they're duoed, they are paying attention. So I don't she does a little bit less damage, which means she relies on the ADC a little bit more. So as a solo queue pick, I think she's a little bit less oppressive, but as a duo queue, I think she's going to just be as oppressive because her kit in general right now is just really good to what's in the meta. Next up, we have some changes to Master Yi, and I'm a big fan of these changes to a degree. I don't think they gutted his Q enough, to be honest. I think his Q should be down at that like 70% ratio, roughly. Just because it's off of total AD, by the way. Like, his damage ratio on his Q is still 90% total AD, which is kind of a ridiculous amount for somebody who can spam that thing. Like, it has a cooldown reduction piece to it already. Um, and with the items that you can build, you can still spam this ability. Cool, you're losing 10% damage, but I don't think that's enough to really gut the ability where they want it to be, where people are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Wuju style now. Like, Wuju style Yi is not popular because of the fact that it requires you to auto attack people, which means there's a lot of counterplay to it. The reason Alpha Strike Yi is so popular is because, well, you're untargetable for 5 whole freaking seconds, basically. Like, there's so much time in a fight. You know, most fights, it takes 2 to 3 Alpha Strikes to kill people. And in the time that you're in that Alpha Strike, you are untargetable, which means there's no counterplay to be had. You're doing a crap ton of damage to people, and uh, and then you turn invisible. So this is trying to say, hey, we're trying to make the Duskblade less appetizing to people by saying your Wuju style does a lot more base true damage, which it's not anything to sneer at, by the way. Like, that is a lot of increased damage, right? Like, a 10 extra true damage is a lot. You know, it might not sound like a lot, but every time you're getting a Wuju style auto in there, if you're building attack speed, that's basically every other auto at this point, right? Like every second, you're getting like 3 or 4 of these attacks, which means you're getting in an additional 30 damage probably in the mid to late game, which is pretty impactful. But the problem is you have to have enough attack speed for that to mean anything. So early game Alpha Strike is still going to be more potent, you know, and that's kind of how it's supposed to go. Your Alpha Strike is supposed to be your really potent tool in the early game. You're supposed to make it in the late game. It's kind of that reset tool to allow you to get into a better position in the fight, maybe. Um, and then you're supposed to Wuju style people down for your primary source damage. Right now, Q is the primary source, and I think Q with 90% AD ratio is still enough to be incentivizing people to just keep doing the Duskblade build. I don't think this change is big enough to really cause people to switch from the Q build to the Wuju style build. Sure, you're getting a pretty big buff through Wuju style damage, but your Q is not taking a big enough hit to really disincentivize you from taking the Q build. Um, that 10% can mean something, but it doesn't mean enough because you turn invisible, you're still doing a ton of damage. You know, if there's additional nerfs coming into the items as well, maybe, but like with just seeing the Master Yi change, we're not going to see anything different. This should incentivize people to change, but it's not enough to do it. It's just not enough. Morgana change. So Morgana's losing 30% of her damage against non-epic monsters. This is good. This is going to make her an okay pick for people that are bad at jungle, but should stop making her as oppressive. And you might ask, well, what's making her so oppressive? Well, she can outclear every other jungler in the game, and she hard counters 3 of the top picks if played correctly. So supports can just shift into the jungle, get a lot more gold, and become a lot more oppressive. I don't think that's healthy for the game state. You're not fixing the problems with jungle by introducing supports into the jungle. You're simply just saying, hey, we don't want your role to be so skill intensive, which I think is dumb. I think there's better ways that you can actually look at the role and add in ways that encourage new junglers to join to the role by making the skill of jungle seem fun and interactive, opposed to being so daunting and imposing. Right? Like jungle is the role of knowledge. That is the big part of jungles. You have to understand a large aspect about the game. You need to know when to gank, how to gank, who to gank, what objectives to be fighting for. Do we fight these guys to try to take this dragon? Do we 50-50 it? Do we move over here, take the Rift Herald? Do I need to ward here, 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 here? What camp pathing should I be taking? There's a lot of knowledge you have to have in jungle. While the skill aspect of, showing off how you play the champion can happen if you're like a Lee Sin player or something like that, there could be a lot of mechanical plays as well, but there could be a lot less. Morgana took 0 mechanics and took away a lot of the thought process you had to do in the jungle with her previous amount. Now, when she goes down to the 155, she can't do the blue Gromp start that she's been doing, right? Like, you can't, like, half-health the blue and pull it over to the Gromp. You're doing a lot less damage, which means she's going to take a lot more damage, which means if she gets invaded at this, as she's trying to finish these 2 camps off, I think she can easily be killed and punished now. There's a lot more punishing spots. There's a lot less speed to her clear, which just means that she is going to be okay still. I don't think this is going to, like I said, I don't think this is going to gut her to the point that she can't be played in the jungle, but I don't think that this is going to allow her to be in the top echelon of junglers anymore, which I'm happy to see. I really hate having to ban her every game because of it. But for those who do ban her every game, I still recommend still banning her this patch at least until people catch on that she's bad. And then when we see a giant drop in her play rate in the jungle, that's when you're going to want to stop banning her. So probably keep banning her for the first week or so of this patch, and then after that you probably could stop. Next up, we get some big changes to Nautilus. His E is now doing 150% increased damage to monster camps. I really like this change. Initially, they were saying it was 200%, which was really going to kick him into the jungle. 150, I think, brings back some possibilities for Nautilus as a viable jungler. He used to be a viable jungler back in the day. Like, if for any of you who didn't play back in, like, Season 4, Season 5, there was a period where Nautilus was the best jungler because of the fact that you come into a lane, you can hook people, you could clear camps pretty well, you're a big old tanky boy. Like, there was just a lot of benefits to him back then. And he still has a lot of those benefits. His base damages are good. He's really good damage in the early game, but one of the biggest problems he has, at least right now, prior to this patch, I was trying him out a little bit, and I was finding, unlike most champions, where as you start gaining items, you're going to do more damage to the camps and stuff, Nautilus starts losing damage. His base damage is what all of his damage is based around. So as you're going up as a tank, your base damages don't actually go up enough for it to matter. So as the camps start leveling up, you actually have a harder time clearing your camps with speed. So this change to Riptide should hopefully allow for that to happen. You might need to build a little bit of AP in here. I can see maybe a Demonic Embrace becoming part of his build path in the jungle. Expect to see me be playing this on my Twitch account. I'm going to be playing some Nautilus games probably to try this out. He was one of my previous favorite junglers. I think this could help with the viability of bringing him back into it. The only problem I have is that they're doing this to his E. If they did this to his W, I could definitely see that Nautilus is going to be back. But the fact they did it to his E is a little bit funky because most people don't like maxing his E first. Sure, it has some of his best AP ratios, but you want your Q on a lower cooldown. You definitely would like bigger shield off of your W, but I guess in this case, your max order could be maybe 2 to 3 points in your E, and then maxing your Q, and then maxing your E. It feels a little bit funky doing that way because you're losing some of your tankiness, which would then incentivize building a little bit more bruisery items on him. So I'm going to have to experiment with this one. I really want to try this out, and I really want to hope it works, but it's plausible that he could become a decent jungler now, but it's also kind of weird that he might not be very good. So we'll see. The W changes to Kiana. So if you didn't know, Kiana is terrorizing high elo because she can roam around, kill things, and just does a lot. She kind of sucks everywhere else because she takes too much skill and knowledge to play properly. And if we know anything about League of Legends, if you're not in the top echelon of, that 0.001%, you don't really understand how to use your champion to the fullest. So not being able to use her to the fullest, she wasn't really a terror anywhere else. So what they're doing is they're taking away movement speed from her W. This just means that at the top elo, she can't roam as fast, she can't do as much pressure around the map, which is a big nerf up there, but in the rest of the elos, you're not going to see much of a difference. If the Kiana sucks at Kiana's abilities, they're still going to suck at Kiana's abilities. This nerf isn't really going to be affecting them. If they're a very big roaming Kiana, that's where you're going to see the nerf to them. But in most cases, the most Kianas I see, they don't roam very well. They don't move around very well like they're supposed to. They keep trying to make the 1v1 lane in mid work. So in all, I think this is just kind of a dog change, or not a dog change. This is a change that only affects higher elo. The dog players like myself, you're not going to see much of a difference really, unless you are a very roam heavy Kiana. Rumble changes. So maximum damage from passive to jungle monsters. So there was a cap that I didn't realize because they didn't put it in the last thing, but this was a previously old cap set, which was 120 to monsters, which, FYI, you previously didn't really reach with your passive, but now you do because it matters a lot more because now you have a lot of attack speed. So reducing the amount per the attacks just means that you're gonna have to do one of a couple of things. You have to give up on Rumble Jungle, which a lot of the people that see this are like, "Oh, he's dead. Your passive's bad. He's not good." Problem is that Rumble still has a lot of damage on the rest of his kit. The fact that his overheat was good was just allowing people to do that cheesy W spam early. So I think people are going to be moving more towards the runes path that I'd been running with right now, which had been Dark Harvest with secondary and precision, which gives you attack speed. And with that attack speed, you're not going to. I'm going to notice some minuses to my clear, but I was doing Q start, which gave me extra damage anyways, and I wasn't overheating. And so, like, I'm not going to notice that much to my early clear. It's not going to be until that first camp where I'm overheating on that I notice it, and by then, the overheat wasn't really the thing that was pushing me through that camp. I was really using my Q to get through the camp. My overheat was allowing me to take some nasty duels every now and then. I think all in all, this change is kind of it's a good change because it's going to punish the really good Rumbles who were abusing his overheat to do early clears. What it's not going to do is it's not going to punish me, the bad Rumble player, nearly as much. So I think he's going to be kind of a hidden OP pick still. I think this disincentivizes a lot of people at the upper echelons from playing him, but turns out he's actually still really good in the jungle without being able to abuse his passive as much. And even with his passive taking a small hit here, his damage to champions is still through the roof. So I think all in all, jungle Rumble is going to still be really, really good. All right, so Rise is getting a health growth increase. So instead of getting 98 a level, he's getting 110. That is a 12 HP difference each level. This is statistically speaking, this is not something that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, yes, I can feel the difference. But at level 3, you have 24 extra HP. 24 extra HP can be enough to actually determine if you live or die in a bad trade. So this can actually do something a little bit meaningful, weirdly enough. I don't think it's enough of a change to really make up for what they're saying it is, because you lost, like they say, you lost your shield from Seraphs, you lost your health from Rod of Ages, um, and now you're nerfing your phase rush, so you're feeling like Rise is going to be losing a lot of his defensiveness. Well, yeah, no shit. You've gotten rid of all the things that make him defensive. So we're giving you a little bit of HP back. It doesn't make up for all those losses, but people have already gotten used to those losses, right? Those items have been gone a while now. So you've kind of gotten used to the people who play Rise. They've gotten used to how you play him now. So this is just a slight buff that's going to allow you to take a little bit worse trades in the early levels, and as it goes on, you stop noticing as much. But around level 3, level 4, you're having an extra 24 to 36 HP. That's pretty good, actually. That's a decent amount of extra HP that you can be working with, that you might not realize. You know, those situations that you have where a person gets away with just a sliver of HP, and you look and they have like 20 sub HP. Yeah, this could happen more for Rise now. It's not enough that it's going to be like, oh yeah, Rise has power back. It just gives you a little bit more room to make bad trades early on, which I think is a net neutral change for him. I don't think this does anything to increase power. This doesn't increase viability. It just is something that's a little bit nicer for the Rise mains out there who are struggling to survive in the early game. Um, so Senna is getting a lot of changes here, guys. So first off, Senna's passive. She's no longer gaining 25 range or 25 attack range per 20 stacks. She's gaining 20 per 20. So she's getting 1 basically for every stack, but it only happens in increments of 20. I think that's a solid change. Piercing Darkness is healing now also scales with 160% lethality. So this is to encourage lethality setup opposed to the attack speed setup. Because Riot is tired of seeing attack speed setup because it's super oppressive to be dealing with attack speed setup. Now here's the funny thing about this. I think we're going to still see some really goofy attack speed Sennas that are just sneaking lethality in, right? You're going to end up with probably Kraken Slayer, and instead of going in more attack speed, you're just using Kraken Slayer to then go into, like, oh, I don't know. Let's say trying to think, what the hell is the name of that item? Collector. I couldn't think of Collector's name. You're going to go into a Collector, and maybe a Ghost Blade. And maybe, oh, I don't know, a Serpent's Fang that's also getting buffed this patch. So there's incentivizations for Senna's to keep going Kraken Slayer still, and then adding lethality after that. And I think that's going to still just make her really, really strong. The range decrease definitely hurts the attack speed Senna, because that's something you've been relying on. Instead of having to do rapid fire, you are rapid fire. So now you're getting less range, and instead of taking 80 to get yourself to 100 additional range, it now takes you 100 to get 100 additional range. That's actually a substantial enough nerf that she will have points in the game where you're going to be able to abuse her a lot easier. So I think this change in general is a good change. I think the range nerf is a good change. The lethality, I'm a little bit on the iffy if the lethality for the Piercing Darkness is increased damage is good, but it could. I mean, it could be a solid change that just makes the attack speed 1 go away. I think we're just going to see an adaptation of the attack speed 1 to include lethality into her build now. Her E, Curse of the Black Mist, bonus movement speed going from 20% to 20% plus 1% per 20 AP. So this is trying to encourage AP Sennas on the rise. Same thing goes with the ulti change from a 50% AP ratio to a 70% AP ratio. These are just kind of funky. The fact that she has them in general is just really weird. I don't think she needs to have AP. Like, I get it, you're trying to incentivize her to build the enchanter items in the support role. I don't think there's enough incentivization here. I mean, yeah, an additional 1% per 20 AP could do it. Like, for instance, if she gets a couple of, let's say she gets a Staff of Flowing Water, increases it on her and her ally, and then she presses E, they're going to be going really, really fast for a couple seconds. but I don't know if this is enough to really incentivize going into any AP build on her. Looking at it, like your only damage aspect from it is coming from your R. Yes, it's going to help with your Q in terms of healing, and your Q has a small ratio, I think, on it as well. Um, and then but they're also incentivizing you to go lethality here in the same patch to do better healing. So you have to weigh out the pros and cons here. Is going AP Senna and getting that extra movement speed going to be beneficial? Now let's say you can get to 200 AP on Senna, right? Let's say you go with the AP build, right? You're going 200 AP on Senna for whatever reason. That's 2 items probably. 2 actual AP items. I don't know how many support items that is. I don't really play support, so I don't know the itemizations amounts. But let's say you're at a static 200 AP just for easy number percentage here, right? At every 20 AP, you're gaining 1. So you're gaining 10 additional movement speed. So that means you're giving a 30% movement speed buff with your E opposed to a 20%, 30% opposed to a 20%. That's a pretty decent change. But to make this like overpowered, you kind of have to do with like what Pike does with lethality, right? Where Pike gets to move obscenely fast because of his lethality. You'd have to do that with your AP. So if you get like a death cap on Senna and you could get yourself up to like 600, well now you're looking at a 30% increase to your stuff there. So at a 30% increase, you're looking at a 50% movement speed increase. That's kind of nutty. So if you could somehow make AP Senna work where you can get up to 600 AP on Senna, which I don't really know how you would do that pretty efficiently from support. You might be able to do it from the like as an APC, going like Nashor's to Death Cap first items, which puts you at like 400, which means early on you're going to be moving like an additional, what is that, 20% on your E, which means you're moving everybody at 40% movement speed, which makes you like mini Sibber, which I think is kind of cool. But like, is it worth it? Like the only thing really scaling with that damage in the end is going to be your heal and your Q, and your R damage if you hit somebody with an R. Which also, FYI, at 70% AP, that's not enough really to incentivize doing that with your R. You know, you're doing 70% of 400. Here, I can crack out a calculator real quick and show you that. 70, let's just say you have 400 AP. Let's say you have 445 times 0.7, which is 70%. That's, oh, I divided it. Whoops. 445 times 0.7. I was like, how did it go up? You're looking at 311 damage with her base damage of like 200. So you're looking at 500 damage. I mean, it's a solid execution, I guess, if you do like Dark Harvest Senna. Like, there's going to be some funky build for this. I don't think any of these changes, other than the range cut, are gonna range. So the only two that I think are gonna be like super matterful are these two here. These two are kind of gimmicky and are trying to push you into trying to be more support like, but you would need enough AP for them to either of them to matter really, and there's not enough AP itemization that I think works with Senna that's gonna make these two matter that much. Um, these are the big changes, and I say look out for attack speed slash lethality combination, and you don't get a rapid fire as easily. That's all it is. Seraphine's getting a buff to her W. She now she shields shields her and her allies a little bit more. Uh, at max level. Okay. I don't think this changes anything about where Seraphine is positioned. I think this is a solid change for her because she is kind of weak right now, but I think she's going to maintain being weak, which I'm okay with. With her damage profile, like, is okay, but like just how the meta is shaping up right now, I don't think she's going to be particularly like the only reason enchanters were OP earlier in the season was because of the fact that Moonstone was OP. There's a few of them that are still really strong. Don't get me wrong, Janna and Lulu are both really really powerful, and I think Lulu is the most oppressive of the enchanters right now. I don't think this particular change is going to make Seraphine like jump up in pressure. Because if you look here, it says level 1 to 18. So this is off levels. So solo lane Seraphine's going to feel this a lot better than duo lane Seraphine. Support Seraphine's not going to like this as much. Mid lane Seraphine's going to like this a lot more. Because it means that she can take a lot more aggressive trades and be shielded a lot more for it. But it's not anything that's going to be like, oh my god, this is oppressive. I don't think this is going to do a whole enough to make it there, but like you're going to see a lot more Seraphine supports probably because of this, because they're like, oh, she got a buff, and they didn't really read what it did. They're just like, oh, look, max rank, you get an extra 150 to shield people and 225 to yourself, not realizing that it's at level 18 that you get this. This is not enough of a change to really make Seraphine like a top tier one. It's just a nice little increase to make her feel better. So AP Shaco is getting nerfed, guys. I don't know how many people other than me play AP Shaco, because all the Shacos I run to are trying to do crit or lethality Shaco. So all this is this is killing his viability to be able to shred tanks to a degree. I don't think it's enough of a hit where he's just like not playable as AP anymore, but it's definitely enough of a hit that his early game feels like crap by comparison. Your boxes are still going to be annoying. Your boxes are still going to do damage. You're still going to be able to trick people. You just are going to be reliant on items more, and you're going to be more like a mage now. Like, you know, just like everything else, you're going like every other person that requires AP, you're going to require like 3 items to be powerful, and you know, other assassins are only going to need 1. So it just incentivizes you more to go AD, but it's really funky because the only thing with an AD ratio other than his auto attacks is going to be his E, and I don't think that's really enough to really say that like Shaco's going to be oppressive right now. I think all it's going to do is maybe going to make him worse. I mean, cheese ganks with Shaco are still going to be good. I mean, his early game cheese ganks not going to be affected. If you're good at doing that style of Shaco, you're not going to see a big change because of it. Uh, but you're going to have to play that style a bit more, which I think is just going to make people hate this champion even more so, and it's going to make Riot be pissed off because the AP Shaco is kind of scaled up with the fact that they can power farm pretty well because you're maxing box, you're maxing your damage from taking AP, and you're just clearing camps with like 1 box and a couple autos. So I think you're just going to see a lot more hard ganking, level 2, level 3 gank Shakos, and it's just going to piss people off. Sin is just getting a really nice change. His E is finally getting a reduced cooldown as it goes on. I don't think this will make Singed like super oppressive, but I think we definitely will now be seeing a bit more playability in Singed because, you know, you're maxing this at what, like 15, 14, whatever. So even at like level 12 or so, you're going to see a 1 second decrease on this. Level 12, level 13, you're going to see a 1 second decrease on this, which I think is going to lead Sinish to be really strong when with that, because you're already building some CDR on him. You're building a lot of AP. This just feels good to be able to fling people more, adds a little bit more agency to your ability to peel or engage. Just all in all, this is a nice change in the right direction. This isn't like a strict power creep like he's going to do a crap ton more damage, but it increases his ability to actually do things. So if you actually reach that for whatever reason, if you're somehow on, you know, 50% CDR Singe somehow, you're going to be down to a 4.5 second on your flip. That's pretty good. Or at max rank, you'll be at a 4 second on your flip. It's pretty good. I don't think it's going to be enough to, like, I don't know why you'd be going that build. I don't know what you could be going on him other than, like, Cosmic. That's, like, super good for that type of build. But, like, there's some obvious viability to playing a little bit more CDR on Singe now that your CD for your E goes down more from it as well. Teemo is getting a quick buff to his W, move quick. He's losing 3 seconds on its cooldown cost. I think this is fine. I think this pushes Teemo in a direction where he needed help in. Like, Teemo is supposed to be able to kite a lot of the Juggernauts out and be oppressive to them. But some of the problems that he faces right now is that all of them can kind of just ignore that aspect of him by taking Ghost and running him down and killing him, which means that, yeah, Teemo is a troll pick again. Giving him a little bit more agency and being able to use his W is nice. Do I think this is going to allow Teemo to become really, really powerful? No, I don't think this will. I don't think this is enough to push him to become, like, oppressive in any way, shape, or form. But I think this does help him a little bit more, right? Like, there's a 3 second period now where you would normally die in, that you have less of a period that you can die in. That's nice. It gives you a little bit more ability to be moving around a little faster. And note, this cooldown of this ability is going off of, it starts as soon as you activate it, right? You activate it and it starts ticking down, which means for the like 4 or 5 seconds that you have this ability active, that's really what the cooldown reduction is once it's done. So once this ability ends, you're looking at like a 10-second cooldown opposed to a 13-second cooldown. And that's actually pretty impactful in terms of laning phase for him. And as you start getting CDR, that's really impactful because the duration remains the same, but the cooldown reduces, which means like if you get, let's say you're at 20% CDR, which isn't actually that hard to get to with the items that Teemo goes, you're going to be looking at yourself at something like an 8-second cooldown actuality for it. And at an 8-second cooldown actuality for it, Teemo's actually kind of good. Um, so I don't think, like I said, I don't think this makes him oppressive. I think this just definitely assists him in the early laning phase in a way that is more integral to how his playstyle should be done. And we might see a few more Teemo mains excelling a little bit better this patch just because they can kite just a little bit better with this active being a little bit lower. Urgot's getting a W nerf. Just straight up, that's all it is. It's a small nerf to numbers. It's tweaking percentages of his scaling of AD with his W. I don't think this does enough, to be honest. I am an Urgot player in many ways. I think that looking at this, and I'm like, oh, I'm losing 2% of my AD. Dear God, that does nothing. Like, it hurts your early game. Oddly enough, the weird way of saying that is it hurts your early game. It's supposed to hurt you in the late game, but this hurts your early game a little bit. Because you have a decent amount of AD in the early game, so this does actually affect your early game more. Because in the late game, the thing that's matterful is the fact that your passive is exploding and slaughtering people. It's not how much damage your W is doing. Now, note, a lot of people do this little trick as you get really good with Urgot. There's a trick you can do where you do 3 autos with your W, stop it, auto attack, W back on, go, 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 and you cycle it that way. It allows you to do more damage to things. I'm not that mechanically gifted at Urgot. I only kind of play him passively. You know, he's kind of one of my fun picks, but this I've never relied on Urgot's W damage by itself to be the thing that wins me it. Yeah, he's attacking constantly, so you're going to lose a lot of damage as you're attacking constantly. Because I think you like 3 hits in a second, so that means you're losing 6% damage now. That's okay. I mean, it's not great. It is definitely a nerf. You will definitely feel it, but I don't think this will kill Urgot's viability. Like I said, in the late game, his passive is the thing that's being oppressive. This hurts his laning phase a bit more, so you might not see him be as much of a lane bully. But we will see how badly this affects Urgot. I think it moves him down a peg a little bit. I think it moves him down maybe to the lower end of the tier that he was already in. Which I'd say he's not tier 1. I think he was tier 2, really, if anything. So he's kind of lower end tier 2 now, which, I mean, that still means he's a decent enough pick that you can pick him. But it hurts him, and if you're not already doing that Urgot trick, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them. So we'll see. Top lane tank items. So Bramble Vest is losing the fact that it reflects based off of armor, which is good. It only reflects a little bit of the damage now opposed to based off of your armor, and its overall armor is going from 35 to 30. This is huge. This means that people who are oppressed by, stopped by the healing can actually still hurt them. This item doesn't just win you the lane against anybody whose kit is based around healing. That's a huge change. The Warmog's change is ginormous. All right, we're looking at a giant change here because instead of being 3,000 max HP gating it, you need 1,100. So people like Scion, people like Cho'Gath, who are stacking up bonus AP or HP really fast, really easily, are gonna love this item. Warren's gonna love this item. All the big tanky boys are gonna love this item. A lot of the bruiser boys are gonna love this item because it's super, super easy to get to 1,100 bonus health. It was so hard to get to 3,000, especially with how much this cost. And guess what? This item gives you 800 bonus health on its own. Sorry, I have to stand up. My leg. So this item is giving you 800 bonus stats on its own, which means that you only need 300 more, which is 2 ruby crystals, guys, or a slightly upgraded item. Like, you're so close with just this as a first or a second item. Second item, this is always online. As a first item, you literally get a Bomby Center and this thing's online. Right? I think Bombies says that much here. 1 second. We're gonna come back to this because I want to look at Bombies real quick. I'm gonna look to see if I'm correct on that. I think that's a Bomby setting after your name set. Yeah, Bombies 300. So 1 Bomby Cinder and a Warmogs, and your Warmogs is online and you're doing damage with it. That's disgusting. We're going to see a lot of people building Warmogs. On top of that, guys, we have a thing called Titanic Hydra, which scales off of bonus HP now. This gives 800 bonus HP, which is huge for the damage on that item. So people who could build Titanic as a first item will now build it again and build Warmogs as a second, and you're not even going to see them going for the Mommy Cinder. That's my prediction here. We're going to see Urgot doing this. We're going to see Trundle doing this. We're going to see basically anybody that synergizes well with Titanic is going to be doing this. Scion's going to be doing this because he builds up a crap ton of bonus HP with his W. If you didn't know that, his W gives you bonus HP, not max HP. So, all in all, Warmog's change, going to be impressive. Welcome in our new Otmogs team with Titanic, Hydra, and Warmogs. Warden's Bale. Warden's Bale is at a 5 plus 0.35% opposed to a 0.5% of max HP. So this is just a solid change. Freak does the exact buy-to-buy numbers, I believe, and I think even LS kind of touched up on this one. You're not going to really feel the decrease in the amount until like level 14 through 16. So that's pretty good. I mean, throughout the rest of it, you're going to feel more powerful until level 14, which by that point, you're not really needing the Warden's Mail protection as much because you're going to have more stats to protect you anyways. So it's not going to be until a much, much higher amount of HP that you're going to be feeling that. So you're fine. This is going to be a much better earlier item to get. And not going to be needed as much as you get later on. So like where you buy this item is going to change now. That's all that's going to happen, and that's the same thing for its component items. They have the same thing happening to them. Frozen Heart's also getting a small increase to its attack speed slow, which I think is going to increase the viability and buyability of it. So all of these three items have that rock solid change happening to them. So it means that you're going to want to buy them in that second item slot, maybe third item slot at the latest now. And if it goes any later than that, the only reason you're getting them is for the active or the attack speed slow. You're not going to be going for the solid as much. The rock solid isn't going to be as impactful, though it's still going to be nice. It's just not going to be as impactful as it used to be. Moonstone Renewer. You're looking at a small increase of 6% up to 30% of heal shield power per second. This is huge in terms of a buff, because this means it's going to add viability to those champions we mentioned earlier. Lulu, Janna are going to be both really, really powerful now. I don't know if Moonstone's going to become that thing where it's just oppressive again, but when I'm looking at this, I don't think it's going to be oppressive again, but I think it's going to make those picks that are already kind of oppressive more so. So Janna, Lulu going to go up. I don't think really Soraka or the other ones who are kind of still struggling a little bit are going to go way, way up with this. I think they're going to move up some because any buff is going to move them a little bit, but I don't think it's going to move them enough to where all of them become oppressive. I think just the ones that are, like I said, the ones that are really OP, Janna and Lulu, are going to stay really OP and actually become more OP. It's just how it goes. So Black Cleaver. This item had already been buffed and is already really good. Riot saw that nobody's building, and the reason why is because, well, those buffs went under the radar. Nobody really noticed those buffs hit. I've been practicing with this item on a few champions and have noticed how disgusting it feels now because you have the movement speed back from it, which was something that you sorely missed before, which is what prevented people who, like Darius and stuff, who used to buy it for that, to a degree, from buying it. So now you have all the reasons to buy it with a better Black Cleaver version than it used to be. And now they're adding even more back to it. So by the by, this item is going to become stupid stat efficient now, and I think you're just going to see people buying a ton of Black Cleaver. Like, you're going to see a lot more Black Cleaver, you're going to be seeing a lot more Shred. So even though we're going to have a lot more of these tanks coming back, I don't know how much this is going to affect when they have no armor, because a lot of these tanks are going to be doing HP stacking more so than armor stacking. So we're going to be seeing a really weird combination of them. And even with that, Mundo is going to become more popular, so you might see this do okay into him, might not. With the next item on the list after this change going up to the 5% up to 30% of at 6 stacks opposed to 4 to 24, you're having a huge increase, but I think it synergizes super well with the next item, right? Divine Sunday is getting a big, big increase. You're getting a 2% of target's max HP increase damage on the Spellblade effect, which is huge. And then melee people are healing for 65% and ranged are healing for 40, opposed to 50 to 30. That's pretty big. This item is now going to be a really good tank shredding item option as a mythic for a lot of bruisers and Ezreal. And I say and Ezreal because he's like the only non-bruiser that uses it. But you're going to see Divine Sunday being really, really strong again. Black Cleaver's going to be strong. So people who are going to be spell weaving people are going to like these two item changes the most. You're going to see Darius getting strong, probably with a Sunday / Black Cleaver build. You're going to see Nasus be strong with a Sunday / Black Cleaver build, which is kind of weird because you don't usually buy that on him, but it gives you cooldown reduction, which he loves on both of these items. And they both allow you to just shred people really, really fast and do a lot of burst damage with your abilities. I.e., he's going to just love these two. Wukong's going to get more powerful. I think all in all, Wukong's going to actually become a viable pick again. You know, Armut's been playing him, and people were like, man, it's really good. And it's because he's really good at Wukong, and there's very niche situations that he could pull it out in and do well with. I think Wukong's going to become more powerful and more viable this patch because of these item changes. That's something he's been struggling with, is the items that he really likes have been kind of meh to begin with. Now they're both pretty good, means he should be getting better. Frostfire is getting a nerf. So instead of having a 25% plus 4% per 1000 max HP to your slow, this is for range champions, by the way. They're going down to 12.5% to 2% plus your 1000 HP. And then your snowbind cooldown for range users from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. So this is to stop Senna from using this item. This doesn't affect anybody else using this item. It only really affects Senna. That's it. There's other people that were ranged that use other items, but pretty much no other ranged user used Frostfire other than Senna, and we might have seen an Ezreal build maybe come up soon, but before it could happen, Riot said no, we're putting an end to this. So Tank Senna, kind of in the trash now. And with the buffs that she's getting, might be good. Might be good to be doing something else. So Staff of Flowing Water is getting a buff. 25 to 45 AP based on target's level for 4 seconds, whereas previously 20 to 40 based off target's level for 4 seconds. So it's just a 5 increase to the base and to the cap. So the floor and the cap both go up by 5. That's a pretty good change. I don't think this is going to really break anything, but we will see. Maybe we'll see some more enchanter / mage combos in the bot lane. This could potentially be a really good first item for an enchanter if you're paired with a mage. So maybe we'll see the likes of Vlad Lulu again or something like that, or Vlad Janna. I'd say Vlad Lulu probably because she speeds him up, gives him a big ass shield, and can slow people, which allows him to chase and kill things, and they can ulti him. All in all, I think this will be a really good item if that's kind of a combination we see. But otherwise, it's an okay item. It really doesn't do a whole lot right now unless we see this buffing mages, and so we need to see mages in the bot lane again for this to be super viable. Serpent's Fang, ranged users, shield reductions going from 25 to 35. This is a nice change in the right direction. I don't think it's enough to really make this item super viable, but like I said earlier, on Senna, you might see this become a build path for her just because lethality is better for her healing, and now also you'll be able to affect people's shielding. All in all, Senna might become really impressive in a new build, and I'm betting Serpent's Fang might be in it. So the Wardstone line, they got rid of the Stirring of Wardstone. Crap item, you don't need to remember what it did. Watchful Wardstone now costs 1100 gold. It's not bad. 150 HP. It's not the greatest. 10 ability haste. Makes it a little bit better. Allows you to store up to 3 control wards opposed to 2. That's pretty nice. That's actually, for people who ward a lot, that's really nice. I'm a warder. I'm almost debating buying this as a jungler, but its upgrade component requires you to complete your support quest, which is a little bit really funky for a jungler. Upon reaching 13 and completing your support quest, it automatically upgrades to Vigilant Wardstone, which now says you still get that 150 HP, which sucks that it doesn't increase in any way. 15%, 15 ability haste. That's nice. It's a 5 ability haste increase, whatever. You still get to store those 3 control wards. Okay, so there's no real benefit yet. But the amount of stealth wards, totem wards, or control wards that you place are now all increased by 1. That's huge. It means supports can put down 4 wards and 2 control wards at once. That's really big. That's really good. And then just to add in more fun to this, the Blessing of Ixtal says the Vigilant Wardstone now increases ability power, ability haste, bonus attack damage, and bonus health by 12%. So all bonus stats you're gaining from your other items, guess what? They're all increasing by 12%. That's fucking nuts. That's a really good buff. I think this item's going to actually be used now. It's kind of just been sitting back there doing absolutely nothing. It was supposed to be a good item for supports, to encourage supports to be building something that makes them more supporty. This now gives them that, and they put a condition on how it upgrades to prevent people other than supports from using it. So unless you are able to buy a support item and be able to complete the quest, which could mean maybe, hey, mid laners does it again. I don't know if they could. This item wouldn't be that much, but this would be really valuable on mid laners because you're getting a 12% increase to bonus stats. So say you get a death cap. Oh my god, this plus a death cap plus another AP item could just make a mage ridiculously powerful. So if they find ways to cheat this into mid lane somehow, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, and it'd be nuts. Maybe they could do like a relic shield and have their jungler come in and, they do a kind of funky funnel to their jungler. It could work. It could just be bad. It could work. I don't know. But I'm predicting this item becoming usable now. If it becomes broken, I don't see it at the moment, but I could see ways that people are going to try to experiment to make it broken. Because it could be broken in other roles, which is why there's a thing trying to gatekeep it. Level 13 is kind of hard for sports to reach, and a sport quest means it's hard for other people to reach. So it's kind of gate kept behind some hard barriers to get to. If they ever, for some reason, reduce the level cap needed on it, you might see people really trying to break this item. Runes, Hail Blaze is getting nerfed. Biggest reason, Tristana. That's it. I mean, you're going to have 4 more seconds where you can't reuse it, which means your training skirmish patterns are going to change, which means Tristana mid's going to hurt a little bit more, Tristana bot's going to hurt a little bit more, Kai'Sa's going to hurt a little bit more. All in all, this is just hitting the people that are at the top of the meta that are using this item, or this rune, not item. This rune, I think is a solid change. It's just going to open up viability in the roles. Biscuit delivery. Instead of 30 gold, getting 30 gold back for selling it, you get 5. This is to stop people at the high elo from being like, hey, I'm dominating my lane. I just want a free 90 gold. A free almost 100 gold is a huge spike. So instead you get 15, which doesn't do almost anything. So it's to incentivize you to use your biscuits, not to sell your biscuits. And now you're only going to sell it if you really need that spot. But even then, I would say eat it if you could. The build tree, and then there's just a lot of bug fixes, and balance changes to Nexus splits, which doesn't do shit to me. Some new skins come out. So all in all, this patch, guys, the things to look out for is going to be the Senna changes, like I said, and the fact that tanks are going to be really powerful with war mods. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope this has been insightful. Hope that my insight has been useful. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye now.